Okay, hello. I own House of Three, an architectural firm just north of Kingston in Inverary, and I also own Three Step Property Management, or I co-own Three Step Property Management. Um, House of Three specializes in secondary suites and new home construction. I have been in the industry for 23 years, 24 years almost. Let's put it this way: I graduated, and BCIN came in the following year and basically null and voided my diploma. So it's been a bit of a wild show. But I am odd in the fact that I am licensed in all BCIN categories. I did drop my septic um, licensing just for insurance purposes because it's kind of boring, honestly. But anyhow, I'll let everybody else go.
Yeah, eventually runs any suites. Contractors from slowly we do a lot of kind of in the GTA area and in Henderson region mostly. Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. What's
Better? Better?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm just gonna do a little raise. That works better? Perfect. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
sounds
Okay.
amazing.
Anyway, I won't get into that. So I run ZA Suites, architectural firm, mostly out of Toronto. We do a lot of the kind of the GTA. Fairly new at this. You guys are probably way more experienced at this than I have. I've been investing in real estate for the last 5 years, doing side jobs for people. And with the kind of construction industry coming to a pinch, I decided to leave my job and start my own company. And so here I am. Nothing really special there, but yeah, new at the game. But yeah.
Yeah, right. Should I make it quick? I don't even know where to start. So my name is Brandon. I run PDC, otherwise known as Plazzotta Design Co. It's a residential design firm here in Saugeen Shores, Lake Huron. Like 3 minutes away from the lake. It's beautiful. I rarely ever go because I'm so busy working. But it's a great place, and it's not busy like the GTA, but it definitely keeps me happy and keeps me busy. So I can't complain about that. I also work with and for another company called Trillium Steel, where we do steel barn dominiums, where it's basically just steel buildings. So I've got my hands in all sorts of different pies, if you will, that keeps me pretty busy, and it's amazing. Like yeah, love it. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay. So I find it depends on the council that's in at the time, and things can change very rapidly. So, in the past, Kingston's been really tough, and I will say there's a lot of new inspectors at the moment, and that can be tough to deal with. But at the same time, it depends what you're trying to do. So I live rurally, so septic wells, which for secondary suites is not as easy to work with. So we tend to do most of our work with secondary suites in Kingston. If it's not Kingston, we deal with Belleville, occasionally Napanee or Loyalist Township. I will say Belleville is probably the easiest to deal with. Kingston but Kingston's a bigger city, so it can be a little tougher. Um, it all comes down to who you're dealing with individually. So I found that sometimes it's the planning department can be the showstopper, and not want to deal with anything. Like it, we live in a heritage area. There are some places that don't have parking, and yet to have a secondary suite or to legalize an existing basement apartment, we have to provide parking, and there isn't any, which it can be really tough to explain to the planning department that not everybody has a vehicle and it's okay. We can go ahead and, make this building still safe, put the fire separations in and call it a day. Like it's not the end of the world. But I don't know what everybody else's experience has been like with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, me and you work in very similar markets. I've done a lot of work in Hamilton, Welland, and Brantford areas in the past. And Brantford has been, for me, at least the easiest to deal with. Welland's very easy to kind of communicate with, and they get back pretty quickly, and their systems are pretty responsive. But I just find the application process with Brantford pretty seamless from that perspective. On the difficult side, I think everyone on our side of the lake feels the same way. It's St. Catharines has been the most challenging to deal with especially for the last 5 years as construction's really started to pick up with secondary suites, and now just getting into like third units and accessory dwelling, or not accessory dwellings, but like accessory structures and stuff like that. They're becoming even more challenging to deal with. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I got a different kind of perspective than you city folk, I suppose. Everything is everything is pretty groovy out here. I guess I could speak to my town here, Port Elgin. The town of Saugeen Shores is, I think it's going through what some would call a mini boom. Here, a mini boom in a small town, which is funny because it's still a small town. But in my experience, everything has been pretty good. There really isn't very much friction with regards to getting things done. And that said, though, when I do have questions or concerns, I'm pretty I get responses pretty quick, and they're pretty straightforward. It's pretty much black and white from the things that I've been exposed to. Um, there's another town, South Bruce Peninsula, as well. Again, I really haven't had that conflict, or where I've had to pull teeth to get things done or get questions answered. There might be West Gray, where I've asked a question about a property to get clarification on what couldn't be done because we got into huge conservation authority zones, and had somebody interested in the property, and I really just wanted an answer. And that just like it took a long time to get an answer back, but then eventually they circled back, and got me on the phone. They're like, "We are so sorry. We are so busy. We do not have enough staff." You get that? I'm sure I've heard it on here before, where they're just, that's their go-to default. Oh, we don't have enough people to get the job done. And Lisa,
Yeah.
yeah, she's shaking her head, going, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So, I mean, I would say that 95% of my experiences working with a building department in this area has been wonderful. It's yeah, it's easy as that.
It's coming.
I am so sorry. You guys are like, oh my god, I gotta get out there. I am so
No,
sorry.
honestly, though, I think in small towns, because we do some work in rural communities, they're
Yeah,
really happy to just work with licensed designers because otherwise they're
some
getting homeowner sketches. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time in the smaller municipalities, they're going to be um, willing to work with you just because you're somebody that they can talk to on a
yeah, you
level
could
playing
speak that
field.
language. Yes.
Yeah.
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 It's so you're not far off, but there is going to come a time, especially doing additional dwelling units, where you're going to step on somebody's toes and they're going to be like,
Yeah. Oh, I look forward to it. I mean, I hear stories from you guys. I'm like, I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting. I love it.
yeah,
Love to hear it.
Mm.
mm,
Yeah.
I'll go. Sure. When I first started, I was a little more willing to. As I've become more and more experienced and my insurance has gone up and up and up, not so willing to anymore. So if it's a renovation, my team measures it, period.
Perfect.
Um, it's like my insurance this year was over 10 grand. I have never had a claim, just for the record. So 23 years, no claim. I have every single qualification, which is actually part of my problem, probably. But it's because of the volume of work I do. And the number of staff I have. So my insurance is really, really high. When you start shelling out 10 grand a year in insurance, you're going to start to be a little more cautious on what you're willing to do and not do. Because I can't imagine if I'd ever had a claim. So like even then, you got to think for I don't know how much you guys have dived into the insurance standpoint. I mean, obviously we're all insured because we have companies, but there are 3 underwriters across the province for BCIN. That's it. And if you start asking for quotes from multiple brokers, because that's what I did when I first started out, is you shop around for the best price, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the underwriters will only issue a quote for you every 30 days. So whether it's broker A, B, C, D, or E asking for it, whoever is number one in asking gets the quote for you for the next 30 days. And that's
Jeez.
it from that underwriter. So this year was interesting because at 10 grand a year, because I'm in qualified for everything, I had one of the 3 decline to quote. One of the 3 my broker doesn't deal with, and the other one I have been insured with for the last 13 years, and they raised their rates by 15%.
Jesus.
So, yeah.
Oh my god.
And because I deal with an engineering company that we did a bid on a project together, I had to double what my insurance was from what we're required to have in the code. Just because of the project we were bidding on, they had a higher insurance qualification, or a high insurance was mandatory. So we had to raise our insurance. And once I got the special permission to raise it, I didn't want to lower it. I think we had the highest we have is 1 million written into the code, and I have 2 million in designer liability, which when you start to have multiple projects, you're like, it's not a bad thing to have.
It's yeah.
No, 100%.
I think Rod has a question.
All right, let's take a look at that. Of those, was it? I can't even see that one. TLK about municipalities.
Oh,
Sorry, which one? What? Okay.
of
Right.
those that talk about municipalities that are difficult, where do you find the difficulties lie? Planning, building, engineering, younger, or inexperienced staff.
Cough, cough.
Everything.
Yeah. I think in the end, it comes down to you're dealing with people. So some people are more difficult to deal with than others, just plain and simple. Sometimes it's inexperience. Sometimes I actually had one one planner that worked at the municipality that didn't believe in secondary suites and didn't care what it cost to put them in. Everything required a minor variance. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, you're obviously very privileged that you've been able to afford rent wherever you would like. But adding 50 grand in planning fees is not feasible when it's just like we were literally talking about reducing the parking by one space.
Jesus.
Why would we pay 50 grand to do that?
No, it's tough. It's honestly different. It's a different story when you're working with people. They all have their own interpretation. But what are your thoughts on that, Joseph? What do you think?
On what specifically? Because I know we got off on a little bit of a tangent from the initial question. So where do you want to lead this?
What was the first? Oh, right, stamping off other people's drawings and stuff. It's like homeowners' drawings. Like, okay, let's start with that, and then we'll bounce off that with Rob's question too.
Transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm
You have
probably
two
a little bit
questions.
more. Yeah, I'm probably a little bit more open than you guys are, but again, it depends on the individual, right? Like I don't think I haven't been asked, to be honest with you, but I don't think I'd be comfortable with definitely with a homeowner. I think it depends on the experience of the person, if I trust the person, if I know the person, if I like have trust that that person has like quality work, or if they've worked in the industry before and they just don't have a license or something like that. I think that's a different conversation altogether. But as far as homeowners, not a chance. I don't think I wouldn't even entertain it.
No.
It's just there's too much risk, there's too much liability, and why would I subject myself to that level of risk?
I agree.
At the end of the day.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Perfect answer. I love it. I love it. But before we switch over to Brandon, let's what do you think about Rob's question there?
The difficulty with municipalities.
Yeah, we're getting it all out there, man. We're all being transparent.
Yeah, I think Lisa said it well. It's really about everybody, and for me, what I've found to be the most challenging has mostly been just dealing with people and people's personal opinions about how to interpret certain avenues of the zoning and how to interpret certain avenues of the building code or whatnot. That has always been my biggest challenge, because the code's the code. The codes there's obviously some gray areas, but in terms of like it's pretty black and white for the most part. I think zoning and people's interpretation of that has been my most challenging aspect of dealing with cities.
No, I agree 100%. What do you say to that, Brandon? What do you think? What are your thoughts there in your perfect little city?
It's not okay. All right, so listen. Okay, I'm not a little perfect angel over here. I can speak to a situation where homeowner retained me for a building addition, and the idea was so that him and his mother could share multi-generational, and it was a great idea. He had me come out. We measured up the house, got as-builts done, and then started to really focus on really cool stuff like designing and space and form and all of that wonderful stuff. And that's where that's as a designer, that's where you want to be. You know, you don't want to be slapping a tape onto walls. You know, you don't want to be picking up the phone, talking to anybody. You just want to be left alone in the zone and then just spacing out, right? And long story short, we got to a point where it was like, hey, look, listen, lot lines, setbacks, this is going to be an issue. And I was like, we got to talk about this. And it got to a point where I was told, oh, it's going to be fine. I'm going to take it to the city anyways. And I'm like, fine. Okay. But I'm telling you right now, this is going to be an issue. And, then, yeah, okay. So, long story short, we got the drawings done, bingo, bango, out the door. And, you know, it was weeks. And I was like, hey, buddy. So what happened? Oh yeah, they didn't let that go. So as cool and nice as some of the townships out here can be, I mean it's pretty clear that like unless you're going for variances or things like that, like those are pretty obvious things that like are acknowledged and not just like, oh, let's turn a blind eye and pretend like that doesn't exist. So I would say that unless you're blatantly like ignoring something that's pretty obvious with regards to zoning and setbacks and things like that, it's generally okay. Just play by the rules, and if you're not, have somebody in your back pocket to help support your argument. Like Lisa was mentioning, a planner, you know, a well-experienced planner. So I haven't had that privilege to have someone like that work with me on a project, but I'd welcome it and wonder why I would need one in the beginning if I was taking on a project.
No.
But those are the
Well,
risks that you take at the very beginning of a project, right? So like I'm just looking for an ideal project to suit my portfolio, right? So regardless of what they might be, those are all risks that I assess in the very beginning of things. But regardless, Dustin says other designers from around Ontario say that Ottawa is one of the hardest to deal with. I don't have an experience. I can't comment.
Nope.
I can't comment. No comment.
I
Yeah.
actually, so I've designed in Ottawa. They weren't bad. In my experience, Smith Falls, on the other hand, the guy that was there that was really, really bad is now gone. But when he was there, we actually started to not go there anymore. Period. And they're about 45 minutes. So they're within we try to do things within a 2-hour range. But I've done a couple secondary suites in Ottawa and everything was okay. Having said that, I don't tend to deal with the municipality directly. They're welcome to call me at any time, but we give the digital copies and the paper copies to the client. The client submits it because I deal with so many municipalities. We probably deal with about 10. 3 are like main ones, but then there's a bunch of smaller ones locally that we deal with as well. And I just can't. I should explain too. I do 275 projects a year, so I can't track 275 projects. So I don't deal with the municipalities directly. Oh yes,
Could
I
you
know I don't
imagine?
sleep.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh
still have a
my
team
god.
of 5 plus myself, right? Like it's
The job.
That yeah, I'm still
thank
digesting
you.
200 something projects, Lisa. Jesus Christ. All right, well,
Yeah,
I'm
so
still catching up.
2022.
She's the goat.
Yeah, she is
Uh,
there. Oh my god. I thought like 90,
well,
I thought 95 was impressive, and then she comes at me at 200 more than twice. So that's goddamn pretty good. That is amazing, Lisa. Amazing. Congrats. Yeah, that's not I'm sure it's not easy to deal 200 projects. That's for sure. Remembering every little thing,
no.
there's no way. There's no way.
So I do have a photographic memory, so you would be shocked at what I can remember.
Jeez.
I also have ADHD, so it's a little bigger than that. Mixed together, it's lots of fun. Um, so but I like my quick projects. So
Mhm.
out of 275 in 2022, 150 of those were secondary suites,
Perfect. That's what
or
I like.
additional
Yeah.
dwelling units.
No, definitely. Those like
Yeah.
I agree with you, Lisa. Quick projects are pretty good, for, at least for me too. I don't want to stick with a project too long. Which let's have a little debate on that, because I think some of us have done some custom homes, some of us have done some pretty quick projects there, right? Like I started my career doing custom homes, and Brandon, I can understand too, like in terms of like the timelines, the conservation, heritage, site plan approval, all that stuff. It's not fun. It takes its toll for
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah.
from there, now I'm in my career where I'm dealing with apartment buildings and triplex, fourplex type of conversions. They're not as long. They would probably be in the middle between like secondary basement and like custom homes type of thing. So that's where my sweet spot is. I just don't have patience. That's just me. I'd rather not hold on to a project for like 6-8 months in my business type of thing. But love to hear your guys' point of views in taking on those types of projects versus like the bigger ones. So Lisa, maybe we'll start with you again, and then we'll work our way to the
Sure.
around again.
So right now, the areas that I mainly deal with, triplexes are typically the largest that we'll deal with. It's not to say that we won't deal with bigger ones. It's just our zoning as of right is for triplexes at the moment. I still find, because they're typically investors, they're still pretty quick. We're usually adding a third unit to something that already exists, or we're adding a third detached unit, so it's not a big deal at all. And those are done pretty fast. I found custom homes, it's the stuff that's homeowners that takes the longest, not
Does.
investors. Yeah, right? Because they care. Well, I shouldn't say
They
they
want it to
care.
be
They care
perfect.
differently. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
They care in a
They're like,
different
oh
way.
well, what would it look like if we did this? And it's like, ah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting flashbacks now. Oh my god! Don't even. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Welcome to my life.
Oh no.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love investors. Investors are but I'm an investor. Like you guys, it sounds like all of you are investors as well. Like we know the talk and we know what they're looking for. We know we want to make use of the existing plumbing wherever possible, but sometimes it makes more sense to move it to the other side of the room, or like it's a well, I was at a place today. It's commercial downstairs, it's 2 residential units upstairs. We talked about adding a third unit, but I was like, "You know what? With the rents you're gonna get with 2 units versus 3, there's gonna be no difference in rent, but it's gonna cost you about an extra 50 to 100 grand to add a third unit in, because we have to suddenly have 2 staircases. We have to do a lot of exit lighting in both of them. Like the structural work, like the amount of work to add 3 units versus 2 didn't make sense in this project. Whereas most projects it would. But we're talking a 3-story building, so then all of a sudden, and it's heritage. Like, by the time I deal with the heritage portion of it, I deal with the fact that you can't go more than 1 flight of stairs down. By the time, like all of the factors, I'm just like, man, like let's just go with 2 units. You're not going to get anything extra out of it. So let's stop there.
All right then. Let's
I have a question for Lisa. Lisa, do you find that you like dealing with investors more because you're more of an investor? Or because
um,
I'll give some context there. Like I find that like I enjoy dealing with investors more because I speak the language and I feel like I can have a conversation with them, and it's more of a reasonable conversation about numbers rather than an emotional conversation. I don't know. What's your thought on that?
I agree. And I have to be honest, it suits the ADHD brain a lot better because they're faster and they make really quick decisions. It sounds horrible, but I don't want you to come back with me with a decision 6 months later. I want it in like 6 hours, dude. Like, come on. It's so, it, and I find too, like, an investor is going to say, nope, that option is going to cost too much. This option is what I want. This is great if they're seasoned. New investors sometimes drive me crazy. But the seasoned, I mean, some new investors you can guide. Other new investors, they're treating it like their house, and you can't convince them that it's not their personal residence. And yes, we should care, but we need to care about things like sound transmission more than we need to care about, putting a $10,000 kitchen in versus a $4,000 kitchen in.
That's a real discussion right there. Yeah. Oh my God.
Just a $10,000 kitchen?
Oh yeah, yours is probably
Yeah.
like 30 or 30, 40 at that point, right?
It's so easy though. Like you have to, yeah. I mean, I think what you guys were talking about there, it's definitely, it's a mindset thing. The mindset of how can I do this? How can I do this for the least amount of money, but maximize the amount of gain that I can get from all of this, right? And so it's a balancing act, right? But you do have, and I should say, you do have unicorn clients who know exactly what they want, right?
Yes.
And
100%.
those projects, oh, those are just so beautiful because you're like, is this really happening? And it just all comes together, and you're like, you only realize it after the fact, right? When things are done and everything's just, you're, what? Man, trust me, and I know you guys know because they're out there and they exist. So, Rod says, how do you deal with owners that change the scope? Like Brandon said, they come back to you with, oh, what would it look like if we did this? Oh, okay. Well, am I supposed to answer that?
Yes.
Well, he asked you
Go ahead.
directly, buddy.
Go ahead.
Love to hear
He
that.
was
your
using me as an example, guys. So that's actually a very good question. And I would say that it's part of answering that question with certainty is 100% dependent on how you've structured how your business process works, right? I would say that there's definitely a price to pay for certain phases of the overall design. And if you break it up strategically, you won't be taken advantage of, and you'll be fair in those situations, right? And I know for me specifically, I lay it all out at the beginning of a project before I even onboard. So that's just, it's just, if you have to do it. Otherwise, you'll be dragged through the mud and you'll be getting nowhere fast, and you just have no sense of power over your project.
No, I love
And
it.
that's
Love
as
it.
easy as I could put
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I think it depends too on the type of project. So I think everybody's kind of discussed in here before how we price things, and everybody prices things differently. I charge by the square foot solely, and 99% of the time it works for me, and it works for me okay. Mostly
Yep.
because I don't have to spend the time. I'm not taking a day to do a quote. I can usually write you a quote in 15 minutes or less. Like it's just boom out the door. And I get about 80% of my work that I quote. So it is worth me doing it that way and just getting it done as quickly as possible. I will say with custom homes, I actually just up my price on custom homes because I'm finding the current market is a little bit different than it has been in the past.
Oh,
And I'm, yeah.
yeah.
And
I
I'm finding that
actually,
some of them are taking longer.
yeah. So to that, I got into a situation where I was told to look at my pricing, and eventually it got to a point where I couldn't do the job because it wasn't worth my time to get it. I ultimately just said, well, what's it going to take? And no matter what way I was trying to take away services to get to that level, and we couldn't see eye to eye. And luckily I did that at the very beginning of the conversation, and it made me question everything that I was doing. And all it takes is one person too. And so you kind of sneakily go, well, I have everything to set up this project. I need to start asking around, like incognito. You don't know who I am. Hey, you random person. Hey, you random person. I'm this. What's it? And I was blown away, not only at how fair market value my pricing structure was, but the fact that I wasn't even like anywhere near the higher end of things. So it made me really question, a lot of things. But after that, I was fairly certain that the market research in the beginning of all of this was well needed. So, yeah, just market research is very important in these situations, because even if you doubt yourself, you're like, well, has something changed? Like you're right, Lisa. Like they're constantly changing, and you gotta be able to pivot on a dime to make sure that you're landing your jobs, and you're not that one crazy guy who's out there saying, yeah, I'm gonna need like 80K for this 2,000 square foot job. So
Yeah.
you
And
don't
there
want to be that guy.
are,
But yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy.
like Greg's asking if by the square foot for design also, the design sign off sometimes takes the time. And you're correct. It does sometimes take more of the time. Most of the time, I still am okay. What I have learned to do is ask for Pinterest boards and design ideas of what they're looking for first,
Yep.
and I'll price off that. If I see that what they're giving me is all over the map, then I try to rein them in a little bit before I quote it, just to see how it goes. Um, I have actually had to fire clients before, which sounds interesting. One, I'm a woman in the construction industry, so sometimes people think that they can take advantage of me because of that, which I know isn't always the case, but there's some people that will try to push me around just because of that. Like I've literally had somebody tell me, I don't care what the building code says, I don't care what you say, this is what you put on the plans. And I'm like, my license, my insurance, hell no. Good luck.
Good for you.
But I had to say it nicer than that. But there are some people that do try to push you around a little bit. But as far as by the square foot for design, I do it that way. I will say that sometimes it does not work for me, or it does not work on my behalf very well, but other times it does. But ultimately, I also have a staff that I need to keep busy. So I have 4 other designers that I need to keep busy, plus 2 office admin. And so sometimes I may lose a little bit on a custom home. Hopefully not, but occasionally it does happen. But at the same time, I could be paying my staff to be doing web designs. Like we have a Shopify site with website plans on there, that may or may not sell. So losing a little bit sometimes on a custom home doesn't necessarily hurt as much. And sometimes if it's a redesign, most of the time, if it's a full redesign, I end up charging the client for it. And I'm like, look it, like that. My contract technically says 4 hours of design time, which everybody knows is not very much. I rarely charge it. I only tend to charge it when there's a complete redesign going on in the background. And if that redesign happens, then I usually cut them a deal and I put the old plan up on my website, and I still charge them a little bit more. Sometimes they lose their retainer, sometimes they're paying for extra square footage, that type of thing.
Okay, so then before we move on to some other questions here, I don't think I gave my opinion on that one actually.
Yeah.
What was it? Okay? Yeah, Rob was like, "What do you do if we did this type of thing?" No, I agree with you, Lisa. At that point, the revision fees. That's how I structure my contract. Revision fees, whatever it is, my hourly rate, because I'll be the one changing it anyways. I don't usually have my staff doing that because uh ABC, whatever the reason is. But I just don't like doing that. Like number one, I don't like charging people revision fees. I like to get it done ASAP and get it out the way. Number two, if they do, it just seems like it's another tedious thing because we'll redesign it and they still won't like it because of ABC. So we just keep constantly doing this whole revision thing, wasting time in something we could have been done the first go around. So I agree. Yeah, we had to charge them extra on that. Usually I try to put in at least 2 revisions in my contract. Anything more than 2 revisions, yeah, we're going additional costs. Like I'm not losing money on that because of your indecisions,
Yeah.
buddy. But what do you say, Joseph? Are you in agreement with us, or what's your structure like?
Yeah, well, I think obviously you need to have extras in there for if revisions come in, but I think a lot of it comes down to really communicating with the client what the intent is before you start anything. Because if that's not clear from the start, it doesn't matter how good of design you have or you think you have, it may not meet their expectations. Right. And so for me, it's always been like, obviously there's the whole legal side of it. Like, yeah, make sure your contracts are in place, make sure you have a pricing structure there, make sure like you've had that conversation with them. But it's also about like making sure the intent is clear with the client, be very transparent with what they're looking for, how you interpret what they're looking for, and then have them explain it back to you, or or whatever you want to come first. But that's what I've found to be the most beneficial, is just making sure that conversation is very, very clear from the start and making sure that I understand what they're actually looking for.
100%.
And sometimes it's
Yeah.
tough because sometimes they change
Yeah.
their mind halfway through.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
That's fair.
Or COVID. Who got hit with the like COVID lack of materials? I
I
was always
definitely
taught
did.
you never draw. Me too. You never draw with 2x12 floor joists, right? I was always taught if it's 2x12s, you move on and you use engineered floor
Mhm.
joists, period.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits and engineered floor joists aren't going to be available for 2 years. And you're like, oh, well, now what? It's so for a while there, I was like engineered floor joists or 2x12s at 12 inches on center. Like,
Oh,
and you can pick, but it, the difference between not being able to start for 18 months or being able to start, a lot of people just went with the 2x12s at 12 inches on center.
Jesus. Oh my God.
I know.
No, it's COVID, right? Thank God we're kind of over it, but definitely it was a
Yeah.
tough time there. Sorry, what was? I think we have a question from Dustin, right? How did you deal with people not paying middle payments or final payments, lawyers, collections? I love this question because right now I'm dealing with like two people who I'm chasing for like 10 grand each. So I love to answer it, but who wants to start off? Maybe we'll switch things around. Brandon, you want to start, and then we'll go Brandon, Joseph, Lisa.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We've all been burned. I don't know. It's not a topic I like to talk about because it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
But this is where therapy is, man. This is where you can talk about it, right? We can all vouch for you
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
Vent it out, buddy. Vent
I
it.
just the worst. Okay. So the worst part is when you see who owes you money, and it's like, oh yeah, I owe you money, and you're like, no shit, right? That's
Yeah.
just the worst. And you're like, you're not seeing the money, and you're like, I'm not gonna bother. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's happened to me, but it's only happened to me once, and I've put checks in place. And I phase out the cost of the project along as we go, so that each step I'm getting money. And of course, you have to, position yourself in such a way that you can kind of anticipate what the overall project's going to cost at the very beginning, and then you phase it out. Dustin specifically asking for final payment. Usually, I will release the drawings when I have payment stamped. I don't have it. It'd be cool to get a BCIN stamp. Who's got one? I don't have one.
It's just a
We
signature,
were
buddy.
offering one for a little while.
I
You can
know.
get one through the AATO.
So they're reviewing my membership application. I find out on the 13th.
Oh,
They've taken so long to do
yeah.
things. I'm anticipating it. So maybe, Lisa, I heard you wrote your test. I might be picking your brain in the next couple of months
I wrote it
just
a
to
really
figure out.
long. So when I worked for
Yeah.
the city of Kingston, there was a $20,000 pay raise if you got your AATO or your CET. So
A what pay raise? How much?
20,000.
20
Oh my
grand.
God.
Did you say
And
20K?
Oh.
yeah, and you had to have all your BCIN, and you could get either your MAATO or your CET, and you had to get your
Yeah.
CBCO. So you had to get a bunch of accreditation. Let me
That
tell you,
takes
I can
time.
write
Yeah.
tests for 20 grand.
Yeah, 20 grand. Yeah. It's
So
just
I
a
wrote a lot
time
of
thing.
tests. It
But
is.
yeah,
I found
I
the most difficult
digress.
part was the AATO one was drawing at the time. There used to be you had to draw by hand, and I hadn't drafted by hand in a really long time. To the point where my hand like cramped.
Literally. With the scale, I had to bring myself back to get back into a project.
You still have,
Sometimes you need that extra little bit.
you still
Hey,
have
you
your
guys
scale?
remember one of these?
No, I don't
Hey,
have any of
you
that
guys
stuff.
remember this? You guys know what this is. Don't say
Yeah.
you don't.
I don't even know where
Like,
mine is.
Look at
it was
that.
the
That's
lettering
nostalgia
guide.
right there.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So,
So as far as payment goes, I have been burned a little bit. So I worked for a company in college that was a design firm. Obviously a very long time ago, because on Friday afternoons we used to actually blueprint drawings with ammonia and drink Mike's hard lemonade at the same time, waiting there. Which in a windowless office. So like, yeah,
Oh
it
my
was
God.
lovely. It was actually a great place to work. But he closed his doors 2 weeks after I graduated college, because we had so many people not pay, and he had worked out some deals where people weren't paying retainers and stuff. So when I did open my business finally, I 100% take a retainer. The only person I don't take a retainer from, and I should be, is actually my business partner on the property management side, who is currently 3 months behind in paying. But at the same time, if I like really, I talk to him daily, like seriously, if I really needed the payment today, I could
he's
say,
watching.
like, yeah,
Pay up, mister.
probably. No, he's working. And I could literally say, like, pay your damn bill. Like,
Yeah.
come on here. But it's surprising the people that will burn you. So I got burned by an interior designer in Ottawa on her own house. And
Wow.
I was like, sweetheart,
What?
you're in the same industry. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck? I typically am usually owed less than 5,000, so I typically just end up writing it off, which I hate to admit live. Um, Having said that, now that there are more collections agencies that will take lower amounts, the next one I will probably send to collections. Um, the in the past though, like it's not worth taking anybody to small claims court for less than 5 grand and talking to my lawyer and in talking to my accountant as well. So we end up just writing it off as bad debt, which you hate to do. But I do take 50% up front and I take 50% at the end. It's usually the 50% at the end that somebody may not pay. And it freaking sucks. But having said that, most of my cost is covered by my retainer, and it's the profit that I'm losing out on typically.
Right, which is stopping our growth in like the scaling the company, right? So that's where it hurts, at least for
Yeah.
me. But what do you say, Joseph? What do you think about the 50-50? Or I have another method, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I know. Well, we had a conversation about this. I'm
Right.
I'm fairly new at this. I'm fairly new at this, as I was saying before. This is sort of the first year that the business has really been up and running. Haven't really been burnt yet. Still have people that owe me money, but haven't really been burnt just yet. So I don't know if I have any words of wisdom for anybody right now. I'm more here to listen in on this this part of the conversation than
He's
anything else.
cashing in on straight W's.
No.
No,
Yeah.
definitely no straight W's right now.
Oh, it's quite the spree you got there. But okay, so let me tell you my thoughts on that one. So similar to like Lisa's like structure, we do a retainer like 40% and then like 50% right before permit submission. And then we do 10% after permit's been approved. So technically, we're paid like 90% before the permit's even submitted. And then if we lose out only 10% at the end. And luckily, there are some cities where they don't give the clients the permit set, like the issued permit set from the examiner. They send it to us first, and they won't give it to them. So I have a little bit more control over that. And so I tell them, you want your permit, pay up the last 10%, and then here you go, and then we're clear.
Like
Which
that dangling
Yeah.
carrot, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and here they don't. Our local municipalities don't issue a signed permit set. However, I will say, having worked for them in the past, there's this nice little clause in the Building Code Act that says that I can remove my name from drawings, and I have done that. So
Oh.
I'll do them. You didn't pay your bill, I can redact my drawings, and you can't use them.
See,
So
that's
good
interesting.
luck working on your project.
That is interesting.
Um,
Oh, I've
Yeah.
never heard of that
Yeah,
one. So, okay, so
there's a nice little thing in there that says you
Where's
can.
yeah, I want to know more about that, Lisa.
Yeah.
Like, what is going? Okay, so I understand you can like kind of take back your stamp or whatever your signature, but how does that process work? Can you break it down for us? Because I think this is pretty much a gold mine that for some designers here. Like, what happens? Like,
Yeah.
the clients get the drawings, they haven't paid you in like 2 weeks, whatever your payment terms are. Then what's your next step?
So I actually had somebody who refused to pay me after the permit had been submitted. So I just emailed the building permit supervisor a very formal letter that said they refused to pay me. And because they refused to pay me, my drawings are no longer valid under such and such a clause. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but it's under the Building Code Act or under Division C. It's one or the other. But it says that I can retract my drawings. So I did. And he's like, okay, thank you.
Wow,
Problem
That's
solved.
money right there.
that's
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is another layer of protection we need. I didn't even know that. Okay, well,
Power play.
I'm definitely going to use that in the
I
next
didn't
one.
tell them. I was like, well, if you're not going to pay your drawings, then I'm going to retract them from the township. And they said, okay. And I don't think they thought I would do it. So I did it.
Wow, no power to you.
Yeah,
Honestly, that is
that's
amazing. I definitely
Yeah.
did that. Wow. But let's get
I
back.
know.
Sorry, let's get back to some questions because I think there's been some questions while we were just absorbing that
Yeah,
retainer
like a whole
con.
nother sub conversation
Oh, what is going
happening
on?
down there.
So Rob is like, your stamp is your signed disclaimer saying that you're taking responsibility. Whistle until 100%. Yeah, so we talked about that. Yeah, your stamp is technically your signature on your BCIN, which I'm sure everyone in this room
Yeah.
knows about. So it's nothing
Yeah.
too formal. I wish we had the stamp, similar to the AATL type of thing. But
Yeah,
but
you feel like, bam.
I feel more special that way, But it is what it is.
Yeah.
There, I want that certificate. I think Lisa, we talked about that in your interview, right? Like, there's a BCIN
Yes.
certificate or something, paperwork.
That's cool.
Yeah, there used to. So yeah, this is the problem when you're old. So I was in the pilot program for BCIN. That's in the second pilot for general legal. But you got to think, like, I literally graduated, and a year later, Bill 124 came into effect. So my entire diploma was useless. Whereas, like, I graduated thinking I could do what I graduated for. Whereas now, at least, you graduate and you either have to work under an architect or you got to get your BCIN, right? Whereas back then, though, nobody had any idea. And so I graduated, and all of a sudden it was like, and you can't work anymore. See you later. And it's like, oh my God, unless you go and write all these tests. So I was in the pilot for the general legal and did that. But obviously there was some incentive to go and get my AATO designation. So I have a bunch of initials after my name.
Yeah.
They actually.
How does 20K sound? Yeah.
Man, we missed out, man.
Well,
we missed out.
Well,
and not only that, when I taught at the college, I have a 7-page resume, and a 7-page resume is the difference between $75 an hour at the college level and $120 an hour at the college level. So I am odd in the fact.
My resume would be 7 pages if my font was size 72.
23 years in the industry too, right? So I have a partial diploma, not a partial diploma. I have credits in the civil engineering and technology program. I was 5 courses short of civil engineering technology. So I cross-taught in civil engineering, technician technology, construction technician and technologist, renovation technician and technologist, architectural technician and technologist programs at Loyalist College when I was there. And not very many people cross-teach amongst the 4 programs, but because of my background, it allows me to do that.
Perfect. No, that's what I missed out. So, because now we go in court and we see this little sign like you have the qualifications, but I want something special. That's just me. That's honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel about that,
Yeah,
but
what a trophy!
but
Yeah,
Give me that
they
trophy,
literally
guys.
used to put it every time you got a new qualification. They used to send you a piece of paper that had it all listed out on there. So I'm sorry
Yes.
you missed that. But I did not get one for septic. And then, having said that, I probably didn't deserve it for
The
septic.
joke there. There's a joke there.
Well,
There's a
so
joke
the septic,
there.
I can write tests really quickly, and because I have a photographic memory, I tend to remember where things are on pages very quickly.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I took what was supposed to be the George Brown online course that was 6 weeks, and I didn't have time to do the course, so I ended up like condensing it down to 13 hours the day before the exam, and then I wrote the exam the next day and passed it. So I don't know that I deserve that qualification, to be perfectly honest.
You deserve
But
100% of it. Yes, you do. You wrote
but
it
I'm
and
not
you
comfortable
passed.
doing it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but passing a test is not the same. Like it's really,
What?
you know, think about like how many of the BCIN tests have you done, and how many of the questions on there are things that you do day to day?
That's a joke.
Like
It's true.
a
Yeah,
quarter.
valid.
20%, I would say.
Yeah.
That's I mean it's valid though. That's valid. I agree.
No, but it's even you
Yeah,
could
it's
pass the
not.
test, but you can't anticipate the interpretation. I think that's the biggest issue with the
Yes.
examiners, and that's my biggest like time consuming stuff as of like 2023 this year. Just interpretation specifically was the triplexes. I don't know about you guys, but the triplexes apparently are like a little bit of a gray area. And some of the city examiners are like, oh well, we interpret it one way, and all of them see it differently. So I'm like, well, who wins? I got to talk to a supervisor, and even
I've actually
yeah,
uh, ours have Kingston has come out with now. They want to know what the water feed is, or like
water table.
the water. No, what the water is coming from the street, the size of the line, whether it's three-quarter
Oh,
of an inch or an inch. And I actually had to have a hissy fit earlier this week. Or sorry, last week, and I was like, come on. So you didn't ask for it on the first 10, and now you're asking on it, like you've asked me for it 4 in a row. Like if this is something you're asking for, I need to know, because we're legalizing existing mainly. And if we're legalizing existing, so we're just putting fire separations in, what the heck does it matter? And the CBO had to agree with me on that one, so I did win that one. But I also said, like, they're tenant occupied. It's not like I can just send a crew back in there to measure where it is at the water meter. You need to tell me this in advance. And they also have come up with, they now want a key plan for the upper 2 units in addition, whereas we've always just inputted this is the basement unit, this is what we're doing, and that's it. Um, so that's I was like you got to tell me these things in advance. We can't just go back every time, and my pricing doesn't allow for this. So we came up with a solution that we got approved where I'm sending actually my real estate photographer in to do a key plan for the floors that we're not doing work on, because she's $150 to do the same type of work that I'm going to charge 2 grand for, which keeps my investors very happy. And the water main thing, if it's not changing, then we're not worrying about it. If it is change, like if we're adding fixture units to it, then we're doing manifold systems. But the manifold, I looked through all of part 7, the manifolds are no longer written in there. So it's just their interpretation of, we're going to accept a manifold.
no, and that's the biggest problem right now. You never know what they want 100%. So like my strategy is just to measure everything in the building, just so I don't have that issue anymore. But we used to do that. We used to just measure the basement and just submit that, and most of the time we get away with it. Back then, this is like 2 3 years ago. Sometimes they ask for an elevation for the what do you call it, the spatial separation calculation.
Yes.
Sometimes they don't, and then yeah, it's a win-win situation. But now it seems like they want a lot more information about the existing building, especially when it comes to the triplex. They want to know where all the units are going to be located. Are you using the attic? Where's your two egresses, unless you have dedicated exits or whatever. So it's become a lot more challenging, a lot more different than the custom homes when I used to do, Brandon. I didn't get as many comments as I did back then, that's for sure. But that was a single family home. This is multiple residential units, so maybe that's the thing. But maybe you can let us know what your feedback is with the city's interpretation on your side.
What's the question? I got distracted.
Okay, so we're getting like
Yeah.
we're getting like 100
Easy.
comments from the city, right? In like our residential or real estate investor focused projects, right? How's the custom home and house additions on your side? Are you getting like 100 plus comments, or how's the interpretation like?
I'm not really getting anything. Usually if I have any reservations, like honestly, I mean the furthest project I have from me is in Stone Mills, right? And that's pretty far, right? That's over by
That's close
Lisa.
to me.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's over by Lisa, right? And so usually if I have any sort of like thought, like I'm really good at doing my due diligence. Like I'm hopping onto that township's website and I am looking at their list of requirements of things that they look for to get permits. Like it's just a natural part of, especially when I'm not familiar with the township. Like that's, I guess, one of the advantages to knowing what we know to look for, so that when we get to that stage, if we have any red flags, we can ask the question, pick up the phone, and tell them to somebody. But yeah, I've been lucky so far. I'll say that. Yeah.
Oh no.
And I'm nervous because like I know that streak is probably going to come to an end and I'll have to deal with it. But you know, I prefer to stay in my little area of.
Well, it's working.
conformity.
If it's working, man, I'm happy for you.
Stone Mills is pretty relaxed.
What's that, Lisa?
Stone Mills is pretty
Yeah.
relaxed.
Yes.
They are pretty. One, they really like it when it's somebody licensed. So they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, well, yeah,
hold
like-
your napkin stitches. Like, we'll take it.
Yeah, I've got like Seguin out in there, like Bracebridge area, Stone Mills, like all of those areas, like they're just, yeah, like I don't know. Maybe it's asking the right questions. Maybe it's knowing what questions to ask in certain situations, right?
I swear to God, Brian, your life is
Yeah.
too good there. I might want to move up there with you, man.
I'm sorry. I don't. No,
Listen.
look.
This is what's going to
My
happen.
time will come. I will bring it up.
I want to find a house near your place, and then we're going to start like killing it in that part of Ontario. That's what we're going to do, because my part is not
Please.
working out.
We need housing, right? So my struggle is that like you hear everybody like, oh yeah, we need housing. It's like, let's go, let's build stuff, let's go. I want to like maybe a little bit too much energy, but like you know what I'm saying? Like
No, 100%, man. It's good. It's good that you're actually
Right?
building some new ones, because eventually we'll run out of the existing ones, right? So that's
Well,
Fucked.
there's that, and like lately the idea of like keeping old things and making them new again seems interesting, but
it's not your bread and butter type of thing.
It's all
Yeah.
it's not my bread and butter.
And
It really is.
I think the stuff though, like when you started getting into reusing existing stock, you start dealing with Part 11, and Part 11 is a whole different ball game and really open to interpretation. And it starts to bring in outside resources like the HUD, the historic materials out of the. It actually references an American document, which is unusual for the Ontario Building Code. So there's all kinds of little things like that once you get into Part 11, that because it's so much open to interpretation versus just straight Part 9, I think that's where you get into a lot more of the lists coming from the building department. The other thing is too that with triplexes, they're small buildings and not everybody's qualified to do them.
Oh, that's another.
It's not so straightforward.
Yeah, that's another thing, because some of the new designers are asking me which exams they should take, and I'm like, if you're doing housing anyways, you might as well do small buildings, because it counts as both.
I'm like, damn it, I want small buildings right now.
Well, So because you've passed house, small buildings is really, really easy. But for those that can't pass small buildings, my recommendation is to go back down to house. Like if your experience is in residential and only in residential,
That's
and
what I
you're having
know.
great difficulties, yeah. But like
I'm
I'm finding
it's interesting. Like I can work part 3. Like that's it's no big deal to me, right? I'm
Yeah.
getting more and more requests dealing with smaller commercial type jobs. Like right now I've got a couple who are looking to put an addition on their gym, and I'm like, I really want to help you, but you need somebody with small buildings. They're like, oh no, we don't want to work with an architect. And I'm like, well, you don't have to, because you don't, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm
You
like,
need to
save your
just
money.
write that exam and get it over with.
I know, like it's just
At
like
that point,
it's
Brandon.
yeah. So maybe you guys got to work me up to it or something, and warm me up to it, and then
You know what?
yeah,
My
then we can start
advice to
talking
my
the same
staff
language.
is just to book it. Just book it and go write the damn thing. Like,
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. It really
Yeah.
is. That's all it is.
I tried that.
Yeah,
It didn't work for me actually. So I
think
did
well,
I did the classes. I did the actual
get-
classes there. So I need insurance. I need to be sure 100% sure I'm okay with the test, right? Because
okay.
And Suri says SB10 and 9.8 are big deals.
Yes.
Um,
And she just wrote
no
them,
SB10.
so she would know.
Well, hey,
But
if you want to chat sometime, I'm up for it. I like the
yeah,
party. Pachooey!
yes. Okay, Ron, I've been trying to look it up, but I keep getting distracted.
You're just trying to find
Yeah.
that code
I
reference.
like, yeah.
There's so much information.
It's in part 1 though, I think, right?
so then
What else do I need to look up?
while Lisa's looking for that, let's talk about a couple other things. One thing, let's brain
Yeah.
you like 2 things. Before I forget, and maybe you guys can remind me. Number 1, Build 23, very popular this year. And number 2, what's even more popular, at least for us nerds here, is the changes in the building code for next March, I believe. Right? There's over 2,000 changes going on in the building code. Like,
Yeah.
what?
What's up with that?
Oh my god.
Horizontal
What?
railings are
What the
coming
fuck?
in. You
Yeah.
want to
What
talk
kind of
like
railings?
horizontal?
Oh,
Like guards that
you
have the
know,
horizontal?
I'm pretty sure
know.
people were doing that after inspection anyways.
But you
I don't
wanna
know
take-
what happens afterwards. But
No, I agree with you from that standpoint. But you know what?
That's
I have
not
an
the
8-year-old.
worst.
My 8-year-old would be up that thing so fast and over like no.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been drilled into
It
my
makes
head
sense.
for 25 years. You don't do it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
They want to
Yeah.
try something new. Who
Spiral
knows?
when they brought back spiral staircases, just was it the beginning of the year or something like that? And it was like, oh, this is really cool. And a client wanted to incorporate that on their bill. And I'm like, well, this is really cool. I have to actually look at the book to see what we can do. Because I was like, what? Like, what are the minimums here? And like, it still takes up quite a bit of space. Like, it's not that like they're really narrow walkways. Like they still take a pretty good amount of square footage out of your floor,
Well,
which
and
is
they can
at
only
a minimum.
serve 3 persons, I think it is. And if
It's
you look at it, the interpretation on that is wide open because if it's going I had a case recently where they wanted to do it and it was going to a finished basement. But how do you calculate the number of persons served? So I looked at it as we have a bunch of new inspectors in the city and they're going to interpret it based on the number of bedrooms and it's 2 people per bedroom. So once you're over 2 bedrooms, or sorry,
Yeah.
once you're over 1 bedroom, how the heck do you use them? They're useless. So why bother putting them in? That's
Well, I was lucky. We were going
Cool
up into a
feature,
loft.
okay.
It was it
Yeah.
was it was pretty good. But yeah, actually, it is on the plan. So I wonder if I'll be able to get a finished picture this summer.
When are the new
they're
changes coming in though?
I
Sorry,
believe
I
Oh,
didn't
right,
mean to
yeah.
cut you off there.
No.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
We digress so much here. Yeah. Next year, I just saw something. Who posted it? It was the OAA that posted something too, recently.
yeah.
I have to
Which
double-check
that's
that.
how it caught my attention.
Yeah, because I thought it was March.
The what?
I thought it was March that they're going to be releasing it, but I could be wrong. I have no idea. But
No, the spiral staircase is in there now
Mhm.
already.
Yeah, that's good.
That's in there.
now,
That's
Yeah.
this year, yeah. But next March,
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
March, I think they're releasing a
I
brand
have-
new
Oh.
building code.
No, so the new code changes are supposed to come into effect January, but there's a transition period. There's always a transition period, and the transition period goes to March.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
Great.
January 1st then, the brand new codes then, because somebody told me about 2,000 changes, and that seemed a little bit excessive.
I think most of the well, one, will they release it on time? The last one was a year delayed, so doubtful. And there was a couple of things that they've already started to see. What was there? Actually, this affects all of us because we do secondary suites. They're going to limit the square footage of a secondary suite to basically you would never be able to do more than 2 bedrooms, and apparently they're already starting to look at taking that back out. And I'm like, you might want to, because if I can only get 2 bedrooms in, 6,000 square feet, like what the heck? Or 2,000 square feet or whatever. Like it doesn't make sense from an investment standpoint to do that, right?
Well, even for a housing
We're all
standard, right?
investors.
Like the
Like,
housing crisis,
yeah.
that'd be terrible for all of us, right? Why not add more bedrooms? But okay, that's interesting to see. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah, I've got yeah, I've got a strong opinion on the amount of bedrooms that people should be developing with. Families.
Yeah.
It should be 3. There should be more 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
I really, yeah.
But I think so. Our municipality, well, I shouldn't say our municipality because we deal with multiples. Kingston now has an 8-bedroom per lot limit. And I looked at them and I said, like, that is the stupidest rule ever because you've got these mansions downtown that are over 6,000 square feet. Why the heck can I only put 8 bedrooms in those? Like it doesn't matter whether there's 3 units or there's 1 unit. It's 8 bedrooms. And it's a zoning requirement. So I understand having limits, but it should never have been a number. It should have always been based on square footage. It's
Square
written
footage,
right
yeah.
into the building code. Screw everything else, right? Like if it's an existing
You
historic
already- yeah.
mansion.
like you already have minimum sizes for bedrooms anyways, right?
Mhm.
So I agree with you. Yeah.
no, 100%. It's the way
It
it
doesn't
works.
make sense.
Like, okay, so
I
then
mean, you know how the cities are. Sometimes they come down with a heavy hand too, and they just think that their way is the highway, and then that's it, right? So
no, they
Yeah.
have their own rules to play with there, which apparently supersedes some of the building code thing if they want to. So that's the tough part. Working with zoning and building code, it's not really easy to kind of adjust to both of them, right? Now, speaking of that whole like square foot situation, the ADUs, like the garden suites, those are pretty tight. Like they only allow us 800 square feet or 2 bedrooms. So maybe that's where they're getting that idea from, right?
But that again is a zoning.
Mm-hmm.
That's not building code. Under the building code, you could put 10 houses on the same lot if the zoning allows for it and they meet the minimum separation distances. And, if you have 100 acres and it's serviced, why the
It's
heck
like a
not?
hotel.
Yeah,
Within the rules of your designation, sure. What is it,
Yeah.
like 6,000? Or I can't.
Yeah,
even, I don't know.
Yeah, we're 600 square meters, which is 6,400 square feet
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, but even that I have an issue
And 3
with.
stories.
Like what was it? Parts. Goddamn, it was the general reviews in the building code versus part A of the building code. One says gross floor area, and the other one says building area, which is like confusing as hell because how the city interprets that as like the building area, not the gross floor area for some cases. So I don't know about you guys if you guys want to speak to that.
Look under your
It's always messed me
definitions.
up.
Yeah, no, that's what
Kids go back to your definitions
that's-
always.
Yeah, no, that's why they did, and they proved they're like, well, it says 2 different things. The general review says what do you call it, building area for some reason, but they interpret it as gross floor area. It's like a typo apparently. So I don't know what's going on there, but that was some argument I made with them a couple months ago about their building, but that was just my situation there. But anyways, in terms of the building,
You could always
sorry.
Sorry, you could always go under the Architects Act too. So
Oh.
our Kingston has been defaulting to the Architects Act. And if you go into the Architects Act, I actually had an architect stand up for me because I was like, I took on this project and now they're telling me I shouldn't have taken on this project. Will you help me out? And he looked at it and he's like, you can do it. Look under the Architects Act and read the general review. And he's like, the building area is calculated this way. And the city said, yeah, okay. He was able to, like, he gave me the clauses. I copied and pasted the email and he went, oh, okay. So, you can default to that. Sometimes, though, I got myself into a situation recently. It was a townhouse, and I didn't realize that there was underground parking that linked all the townhouses somehow. And so it's a part 3 building that we were infilling an open to below area, and it actually falls under the architect. And I can't do it, even though I had an engineer sign off on it.
Yeah, we have to be careful on
So
that
I
because
have to,
sometimes say architect and
yeah,
engineer, and sometimes say architect or engineer. I got burned by one time on that project too, so we really got to
yeah,
double check before we're taking on some of those projects. But sometimes I work with architects for some of the bigger projects I've done, so it's not really too much of an issue. But that can definitely be a different topic altogether for sure. But okay, so let's talk about a little bit of Build 23 because that's a little bit of a more uh, popular topic, at least with the investors. So I'm not sure if you guys have any projects using Build 23 as a standard there, but what do you think, Joseph, about that?
I don't actually have anything on the go right now, but not with not really taking into effect Bill 23. But on that topic, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more coming down the pipeline as interest rates start coming down. People are just chomping at the bit to take properties and make them actually cash flow. And I think a lot of people are just sitting on properties that have the potential to really utilize the Bill 23. And I don't think the cities have really fully, not all of them at least, have really fully implemented the Bill 23. So I think as cities really start coming on board a little bit more, you're going to see a lot more of these applications start coming in. And I think a lot of us are going to start getting really busy with those types of conversion projects at least.
yeah.
That's my 2 cents on the situation. I haven't really dealt too much with it, so I can't really speak on it. I don't know if anyone else has.
I have. So our bylaw in Kingston changed about a month before Bill 23 came into effect. So we were already, as of right, allowed 3 units, which was amazing. They did redo it because ours allowed for 2 units in the main building and 1 unit as a detached structure. And they quickly changed it to adjust so that you could have 3 units in one building, but it wasn't changed in the bylaw. The bylaws did have a set amount of time to be changed if they are on public services. So your rural municipalities that are served by septic and well actually don't have to change because they have to be able to prove on an individual basis that their well and septic can handle 2 or 3 units, which I think makes sense. Like we have some areas that have lots of water and we have some areas that have no water. And should you be knowingly putting additional pressure on a well that already doesn't produce enough for one family and putting 2 more on that property or 3 more? Probably not. Um, Now there are ways to mitigate it and trucking water in, etc. But I think that has to be done and well thought out. I have had a couple of times. I don't do my own planning applications as far as minor variances and such go. I deal with planning consultants. But I did have a client that did their own personally in Belleville. We were trying to reuse an existing garage that was too close to the lot line. And because it was too close to the lot line, they needed planning permissions, for lack of a better term, or a minor variance. And the community of NIMBYs was so freaking bad. But I will say the council sat there and looked at them all and said, well, you voted him in. And guess what? He's told us that we have to allow this. So too bad, so sad. And I mean, there was 15-page letters of how they were going to hear sex noises more because they were less than 4 feet from the lot line or toilet noises. And you were just like, you literally put that in writing.
My God, the pressure!
I'm
Oh
just
my
like, oh
God.
my gosh. Yeah, but council was just like, you know what? one, may need housing, and two, it meets all the criteria. Like, I don't think you realize they could literally take this garage, move it 2 feet over, and as of right, they could have it. So, they let them reuse the existing garage, and it was fine. It's under construction right now. It's almost done.
Better be sending us pictures, Lisa. I swear. You gotta send us some
Well,
update
it's an
pictures.
hour away, but yeah.
When you get the chance, because I think that's going to be helpful
It's
for
a
everybody.
write-off. Just write it off.
Yeah. But I do, like, I
Yes.
find for the most part, council, the bylaws might not be caught up, but the council or committees or whoever that are looking at things are saying, we know our bylaws aren't caught up, but this is minor in nature. It meets the criteria and they can appeal it and we'd be no further ahead. So it meets all the criteria. Too bad, so sad. And they approve it.
No,
So.
100% there. But no, I agree 100% with in terms of Bill 23. It's like what I'm dealing with right now, at least in my firm, we're dealing with a lot of projects that would require site plan approval. Doesn't need site plan approval anymore because that whole, what was it, up to 10 residential units, you don't need it. But if it contains at least one commercial unit, you fall under site plan approval right away. That's just my argument with some cities now, where they're considering, like, let's say, I want to give you an example right there, really quick one. We did an apartment building a couple months ago, 14 units. Obviously, it was in my BCIN there, and we were adding a couple more units to the basement. And the external work would have been like some new windows and additional parking, of course, because of the new units. And they were arguing with me about if that falls under site plan approval process or does not, type of thing. Luckily, after some discussion with their examiners there, they did not make us go through site plan approval. We were fine to go without it. But technically, because it's exterior work, we should have fall under site plan approval. So the city is still kind of like debating on what would fall under that. Even though it is over 10 units, all the work was being done inside the building. So that's just my experience there. I don't know if you guys would agree or not to that interpretation, but I was just happy we got through it without site plan approval. Right. But
What were you doing in the project? What was the project entailing?
units, so additional units to the property, interior. Like, we weren't doing any additions or whatever. It's just inside the basement. We're just adding like 2-3 more units. The only exterior work was just windows, just popping out some windows in the existing wall. But that technically falls under exterior work. But to say it's like you're not doing anything to the exterior like look of it technically. So they just didn't bat an eye and just say, okay, you know what, you're fine. Just proceed to building permits. So that works, but I don't know if that would have worked in a different city or not, or that's like the go-to thing across Ontario, right? That's a little bit tricky there,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Interesting.
yeah, like that's the tough part there. Brandon, what do you think about your stuff? Because I know your custom homes and house additions would most likely fall under site plan approval and conservations, right? Well, I'm not sure Bill 23
Yeah.
would have helped you or not.
Well, no, but some interesting things about that is that the TBD, if you look at it, and I've looked at it a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed that there was something in there that, with regards to the Conservation Authority specifically, they're still trying to make something up in the sense that it's not going to be required. I'm still trying to interpret it myself, so please, I could be misspeaking. If anybody's aware of it, or maybe our audience has like knowledge they want to drop, that'd be pretty cool. But if I don't know if I could bring it up, but
Like,
there was something there that intrigued me that made me wonder if I had a lot of land and I wanted to build on it out here, and it was, zoned residential and, you know, uh, what's it called, NA or something like that, um, or like wetlands. Yeah. Okay. So I got it up right here. It says permits will not be required within regulated areas for activity that is part of a development authorized under the Planning Act, and it's TBD. Everything else, there's a couple things under heritage that are still TBD, but everything else has been implemented 2022. Upper tier approval powers is still TBD from what I'm seeing, And I don't know, because it's affected me, I pay attention to things like that. So I'm just waiting for waiting for an update. Really just, and who knows how long that will be? I don't even know.
So
But
if they
yeah,
approve that, then that means that you don't need to go through a conservation permit for your projects, right?
well, exactly. Like that's what
Mhm.
I'm thinking. But because it says TBD, I'm not even sure if it's like. I don't even know if it's like a thing. I think they still have to work on, putting it in force.
Wow.
I don't know.
Well, listen, if you hear anything, let
I know.
us know because that's really interesting to
Well,
see.
I definitely will, because I like a lot. Like if you pay attention to, like, as an investor, I think there's a lot of people out there. Like land isn't cheap, right?
Mhm.
And there's only so much of it that everybody's picking the cream of the crop, and they literally will avoid environmentally protected lots, like, or at least parts of land that are, because they know that at some point, if their building, is anywhere near associated with it, it's still, it'll require a phone call to a conservation authority. And it's like, okay, well, I got to do my due diligence here and make sure that we're crossing off everything that we need to cross off, and that you know if that doesn't become a part of the permit process moving forward, and they actually nail that down, I can guarantee you that there will be lots of land purchased and snagged in here in Ontario, because it will, like, it's road blocking, like a lot of people from development. Like, I mean, there are some pretty obvious places like the Greenbelt people just stay away from, just because it's a whole topic of conversation that it really gets political.
No, 100%. Like
And
I,
really,
I just had one property. It was just literally was in the green belt across the street of another development, and I was like we could have done something if it wasn't
yeah,
right on the edge, but it just
yeah,
happened to be there.
you could have done something, and that's I think, every there's a reason why that exists, right? There's a reason why we try to make things stay the way they are. I get it. And it seems contradictory towards what we're all saying. Like, we need to build, but we can't build there. So it's just, I'm really eager to see what's going to happen with that moving forward in places where it's not so much. And I can't be the person that defines that. Like, I don't want to say that, like, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, that's not good. Like, I don't know who has that govern. Like, I don't want to take authority on that, because you got a target on your back.
Well,
So funny enough, in Stone Mills, where you were talking
Yeah.
about earlier, I had a property and I was like, ooh, it's for a client, it's across the street from water. It's still within the 30-meter setback. We should just double check that conservation's not involved.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, the water was not an issue. What was an issue was the protected forestry on the property. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, it was a 100-acre parcel of land that somebody allowed
100
to be
acres. Like, that's
100
nice.
acres
Yeah.
that somebody allowed to be severed as a building lot, knowing that with all of the protection on it, it could not be used to be built on. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You should never allow the severance to go through if that is the case. And the township was actually like, we don't understand this either. Like, this makes no
Of
sense.
course they don't
It
understand.
was conservation. Well, it had been severed like 30 years previously or something.
Yeah.
And it was a piece of land that was given from family to other family. Great. Like, and nobody's expecting anything to be an issue. And a year and a half later, they finally got a chance to build on it. But I was just like, it wasn't even like forestry that was, purposely planted. Like, it's shrubs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
oh my
And
God.
I'm not that guy. I'm not that person, but, like,
yeah,
why? Like, I mean,
it
it's
wasn't
just a pain.
usable. Like, it was just, it was
I
not
wish
usable
I
for
wish they
anything
would
else.
say, yeah, you know what? Go do whatever you want to do, and if you need to take away some of this to get what you need to get done. Whatever you take away, just put back.
Put it back.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree. That's what we
Yeah.
need. Oh my, that would be amazing. But
And
different
and
cities.
or like, I mean, maybe it's something with like landscaping, like when you're looking at landscape open and things like that and lot coverage. It's like, aren't those? Isn't that why that like why is that? And it's just this. I can't wrap my head around it. But I mean,
Even make it okay. I have to, in order to get this property to get a second dwelling unit on it, I have to remove this tree to meet your parking requirements, or I can get a parking reduction. You're not going to let me have the parking reduction. Allow me to remove the tree, but tell me I have to plant 2 more on the same property.
Mhm.
yeah,
Clients
that's twice as
would
much
be
as there
more
would be
than happy.
before. Yes.
You
I don't
have
know.
2 chances of one of them thriving, right? Like, it's not the end of the world. Even if you tell me it has to be a 5-foot tree, like, we do need the trees to breathe. I fully understand this.
that
But
was gravy. I liked that.
yeah, like,
But I mean,
I don't know.
All right. So let's
So, right,
yeah,
yeah,
let's
you
Anyway,
can't chop
there's
down
your
the tree,
Bill
but somebody can live
1
under it.
yeah,
23.
yeah, because Bill 23 has definitely
Build
been
more homes
it's
faster.
been going over the place this year, and I just wanted to grab your feedbacks after like a whole year of just like interpretation. Because as soon as Bill 23 was approved, I talked to a planner in Barrie, and he's like, "You do whatever you want, and we'll see what happens." Because that we didn't know shit back then. It's like, okay,
Do
well,
whatever you
I'll
want.
call
Yeah.
City of Barrie, and they're like, "Yeah, we just give us whatever you want by email, and then we'll say yes or no." And I'm like, "Well, that's not reassuring, but
That-
it's whatever."
Yeah.
Give them whatever I need
I
to
will
do.
Yeah, I will say some of the smaller municipalities, that's the way they're doing it. They're like, submit a plot plan, we'll look at it. And I did do that with like Loyalist Township. I had a client that had 6 houses that they wanted us to put secondary suites in. I was able to get pre-approval on 5 out of 6. The 6th one, we just could make the parking meet, and there was no bus route. There was no nothing. So they're like, yeah, no, you can't have it.
No, 100%.
But we got 5 out of 6.
It's a good win. It's a win. It's a W at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
So there will probably be an illegal suite that I have nothing to do with going in the 6th one, but that's not my problem as long as I
You
have
don't know
nothing to
anything
do
about
with
him.
it.
I have no idea.
No.
There's nothing. We have no idea. Whatever they want to do, right? It's
I
up
will
to them.
say I did not design one, but yeah, like they bought 6 subdivision houses from a builder. So let's face it, they're going to take one of my designs from one of the other ones. They're going to use it, and if
Flip.
they don't get a permit on it, there's not a thing I can do about it.
No, 100%. It's you never know. Hopefully they're not using your stamp or whichever signature on that. But yeah, it's
No.
most likely they're constructed regardless of whatever we say. But just to ensure we're not going too much over time here, I do want to make sure we're going through one more last topic here, which definitely is going to help the community in the long run for sure. Because we do have a couple of like new grads, people starting out in the field, people being freelancers, and apparently I just realized this, but apparently we're in a recession here, so it's like people are looking for jobs and people are looking for some guidance here. So I'm sure this panel here can definitely help them out in understanding what they need to do, some feedback, maybe people who are starting out, right? I definitely have my things to say, but definitely today is all about all of us here together trying to make sure we give back to the community a bit. So maybe we'll start off with Lisa here. Like let's say let's put a scenario out there. We're a new grad, right? We have no work experience. We're looking for some help. What's our next step? Do I get my BCIN? Do I go for the university route? Do I go on the work experience route? What would be your feedback to that if you're trying to help them out?
So the university route, I would look at it depending on the type of project you like to do. I don't like big, long-term, multiple-year projects. It does not work with my brain. I like short projects. I don't need to be an architect to do my short, quick projects. Um, I have zero interest in doing a 20-story apartment building. If your interest lies in the 20-story apartment building, then you should go and get your university degree, or if you don't like being told no, because sometimes that happens, unfortunately, being a technician or a technologist, you get told no, you can't do this or you can't do that, which I hate. But anyhow, if you don't like being told no, you should probably go to university. Having said that, you if you go to university, you've got to work under an architect still in order to gain experience to be a licensed architect. Same with the architectural technologist. You have to work under somebody or in the industry long enough in order to gain your MAATO or your technician technologist, however you want to look at it. I know right now there's a court case on the OAA technologist thing going on. So come join the AATO. But yeah,
Do
but
it now.
look at it from this perspective. I'm 23, technically 25 years in the industry because I worked for a company during college. I, in 25 years, have never worked under an architect. So even though I'm a legal architectural technologist under the AATO, I do not qualify for the OAAA qualification with 25 years experience simply because I've never worked under an architect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie, right? So I would join the AATO because one, it'll make your insurance cheaper. If you're in the GTA area, you could be an active member instead of those of us that don't live in the GTA that kind of get stuck with nothing. But having said that, it does bring down your insurance once you get the proper qualification. I would also get as many of my BCIN qualifications as humanly possible. For the record, people seem to have a hard time passing the exam nowadays, but we used to go do the course in the hotel. You never left the hotel for 5 days, and you came down on Friday, you wrote your exam in the hotel, and then you left, and you had to pass with an 80%.
Wow.
So yeah, it's definitely changed. So
Well, if you're not going to, I'll say
you get a
it's gotten
little-
easier. That's for sure. Like compared to that, 'cause I thought the passing rate right now was 70%, right? 70% and like
yeah, they keep
3
lowering
hours.
it,
70%.
and then they've lowered the number of questions too.
Yeah, to 70
So,
now.
75,
would-
yeah. 70 or 75, yeah.
I find most people get stuck on the fact it's an exam, and they tend to be people that don't read exams very well. So first of all, it's just an exam. If you don't pass it, don't worry about it. Just rewrite the damn thing and get it over with.
Pay the extra and rewrite it.
Yeah, like it's not the end of the world. Just
Forget
do
your
it.
exam anxiety. Forget your
Yeah.
feelings. Just do.
Just do
Just
it.
do it. That's it.
Just,
But you'll never.
just do it.
Okay, but the lead exam. Has anybody else written the lead exam before?
No, I haven't.
So
It
I had
sounded
to
really cool the first of it
When they first came out with it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I
It
need
fell
this.
off. It fell off really quick.
okay, so I go to Ottawa, I go to write the lead exam, and I'm like, this is an exam that really, I'm just like, well, do I need it? Don't I need it? We'll go see. But the college will pay me more money if I go and take the exam and get the qualification. So I write the damn exam. I got patted down. I had to get wanded. I had to get my glasses searched for a freaking camera. And I'm like, you realize this exam means absolutely freaking nothing, right?
Oh,
Meanwhile, the BCIN
No.
exams, I'm like,
It's
for
building
nothing, just write
sustainability. It's
them.
the future.
Well, and the green or the lead green associate exam is not open book; it's all memorization.
Oh.
So,
Oh my
BCIN is open book. Like, just learn to read your code
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's
So
Nowhere to
it
look,
makes it
man.
sound like nothing, but it's nothing compared to that. And I'm like, man, like, I walked out of that
That's-
exam, and it was the first exam where I was like, I don't know whether I passed that one or not, and I did, but. For the record, it was like $400 a year to continue to be a member. I didn't use it for 3 years, and then I was like, "Why am I paying $400? Like, forget it."
I
And
feel
I
like
let
that's
it
a lot of
drop.
people's yeah. Well, they kind of dropped off
Yeah.
in importance too. They stopped really like mandating it. They're really only important on the high like the condos, like the higher up condos and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or like
Yeah.
commercially, you get really big jobs, and then it's like, the cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't mean anything. Like, I'd rather write my AATO. I have my CBCO too, which is the chief or certified building code official from the OBOA. But unless you're a building official, you don't need it. And actually, you can't get it unless you've worked for the municipality for 5 years. So That one was a little harder, but I would just get your BCIN. Somebody else had commented, you can get your BCIN without getting without belonging to OAA or belonging to AATO or any of those. And it's true. You actually don't need a degree or a diploma of any sort. You can go in and write the exam. Will you pass? Maybe. Some people have, some people haven't.
But would you trust them with your house,
it
right?
is
That's the
harder.
question, right? Because that was my argument to a couple of people. Like my brother, who he's like a couple years younger than me, but he focuses on financial, but he does great in tests. He could take the BCIN tomorrow, pass it, and he could design a house legally. But would you trust him with no architectural experience? I wouldn't. But that's like there's no barrier of entry other than the tests, right?
I look at it as you go to school to learn design standards. You do your BCIN to test your code knowledge. They're two different things. The colleges unfortunately don't teach enough building code, I find personally, but that's my personal opinion.
I don't know. I had a great experience building code. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. Yeah, they taught me what I needed to know, and it was pretty intense, pretty thorough. And all of the courses at that time, they were all really relevant to what our main design project was. So I think it kind of was like all encompassing, and it was all relevant for that area of the book. So I mean, I had that really good experience, which is why I'm like, oh, do I want it? Coming out of it, yeah, it was like, well, do I get house? Do I get small buildings? Do I go large? Do you just go big? And then you never know what you want, right? And
yeah,
I just
and
took
you
over.
can
I just
take
hijacked your question. Sorry.
you can take far less of the exams too than people realize, right? Because you can write small
and
buildings,
so
get small buildings
yeah,
in house.
yes,
Like, I fully
Yeah.
admit to writing all of them, but because I wasn't sure on them, so I was like, oh, I'll just write them all. Whatever. The city was paying.
yeah.
So I wrote them all. But having
That's
said
why
that,
Lisa's like, just write them.
just write them.
There's no
I
financial
did pay for
obligation
the
at
first.
all.
I paid
I'm
the
just
first
bugging you.
3. Yeah.
You're an inspiration to me, and I hope a lot of our audience. I think.
No, 100%. There's nobody else I know that's
seriously.
taking them all. Like, I've never heard of anyone
Yeah.
taking them all. That's the thing. I've been in this industry for like 7, 8 years now. So that is
Yeah.
a big achievement, honestly. I don't think anybody would want to,
Yeah.
but they should, especially if it reduces your insurance.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely considering that next year for sure. But just to sum up
You're a
Yeah.
legend.
your answer, Lisa. So basically, university is challenging. The lead exam is BS, and BSAN is kind of the route to go with if you want something quick and easy type of thing. Easy, but like
Well, it's definitely not easy because
Mhm.
the failure rate's really high right now, which is because they're not getting the experience that they need before they write it for most people. But I think too, like it really depends what you want to do. If you want to be a designer and not work under an architect, then you have to have a BCIN. Like, just do it, get it over with. If you want to be a building inspector, you have to have your BCIN qualifications unless you're an architect or an engineer. And quite honestly, they don't pay enough. You make more money in the industry. So forget
We're
about
being
it.
brutally honest now. Perfect.
Yeah, like
People go where the
it's
money is. Show me the money.
but if you can pass the exams, there's money to be made. You can be a
Yeah.
code consultant. You could be a registered code agent. Like there are options. At the BCIN for sure, and then I would join some of the associations to try and learn more.
No, 100%. I love the answer. Perfect. Well, I appreciate that, Lisa. Let's move on to Joseph. What do you think? I know it's your first year in business, but
Yeah.
what's your
I
what's your concerns or anything? We're more than happy to lend an ear there, but even your experience in first year would help a lot to other people.
No, yeah, for sure. I think I took a different route than Lisa did. I went to university. I was planning to really get my architectural license. Worked under an architect, did the whole thing, and somewhere along the line, something happened where I just not necessarily fell out of love with the idea of becoming an architect, but the projects that I was working on were not sparking enough interest for me to want to continue to get my license. And so I left the industry altogether, went to work for developers, worked on high condos, managing large construction projects. And then somewhere around the time where I started investing in real estate was really where I kind of started coming back to kind of smaller buildings and stuff like that. It's just more for myself. Um, and so for anyone that's kind of looking, I think first off, before you do anything, figure out what you want to do. Because I think that's where I made my mistake. Because I was just kind of like, I had gone to university thinking I'm going to be an architect, and then went to go work for architects because I had made this decision 4 years ago when I was in high school, and it was just like bad decision snowballed after not bad decision, but like maybe an uninformed decision snowballed on top of an uninformed decision. And so I think for a lot of people, it's just figure out what you want to do before you dive into something wholeheartedly, and then when you figure it out, just go full bore into it. Because like Lisa said, like there's money to be made if you do have your BCIN, but there's also money to be made if you want to get your architectural license and open up your own practice. It just depends on what you want and what avenue you want to go down. So just figure that out first before you kind of commit to one direction.
No, I love it. That's
Yeah.
great. No, it's perfect. I agree with that. The whole architect route is definitely a popular one with some of the university routes that are going through. But I have
Mhm.
seen a couple of my colleagues actually went to university, tried to become an architect, and then they're just coming to me asking me what's the BCIN, because apparently they don't know what that is, and they're just interested to see how I'm stamping off on drawing. So it's definitely something that some people are turning towards. It just I don't think the information was presented to them at that time, right? But what do you guys think, Lisa, Brandon? What do you guys
So,
think? Yeah.
all things being considered, yeah, I think it's important to note that we are sort of in a recession of sorts. And I could say, from my personal experience, when I was coming out of college, it was right in and around that 2008 era, and that was our housing crash slash uh, recession, which it didn't necessarily hurt me. It just I took what I could get, and just learned and absorbed as much as I possibly could. And that was, looking for co-ops. Like I was in London and was like, give me Newmarket if I can get there. So I was literally like trying to go like, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it at the time, but I was like, I need something. Give me anything to get that experience. And so it, like, at that time you're just trying to learn as much as you possibly can, and then take credit for the things that you do know along the way so you could help things move forward. And for me, that was my strategy. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna do really cool things, and then you know hits you hard. It hit me hard because like we were
Yeah.
we were like 3-4 years out of this recession, and they were turning, but they weren't like turning like you know 10 years ago turning maybe. But yeah, no 1.5% interest rates or anything like that, and things were tough. So I would say, yeah, learn as much. I would say talk to your profs. Like they're like us. Like they know. Recent grads, yeah, just stick to something, learn it for a couple years, and then look for something else and just learn. If you don't want to take the BCIN route, like there are jobs out there right now that don't require a BCIN that you can literally just skate by that way if that's your gig. If you want to be a CAD jockey or whatnot. So like there's options, right? Like you could work for, someone like us where like if you really just want to sit behind a computer and like draft all day, uh like do it. Like I'm not saying you shouldn't. right? Because there's a need for people like that, right? But definitely take an opportunity, even if it's like outside of what you're comfortable with, right? I mean, that's what this industry is all about. We're always continuously learning, right? And network. And it's why I do this. Like as much value as I have to contribute, I get value out of having these conversations, right? So it's a win for everybody to engage in these conversations. And yeah, admittedly, at first it was like, oh, I'm quiet as a mouse. I don't know anybody. And then Henry invites me on. He's like, hey, I'm like, oh my God, I was stressing out so much in the beginning. I'm like, I'm doing a live stream. Like, everybody, quiet. This is important to me.
Well, I
But
think it's
really,
I think it's amazing because like we have people like
yeah,
yourself, Brand. Like you're not the only one who feels like shy and whatever, and they don't want
yeah,
to get out there too much. But even myself, I was like that too 2-3 years ago. But it's your
yeah,
business. Like for me, I got out there because my business. I need to network with people, talk to people, understand
yeah,
what we need to do
yeah,
because there's only so much you can learn, right? Example today, like Lisa's
yeah,
whole point there about the whole, getting back your drawings and people not paying, like that, I had no idea about, but now we do. Well, now the audience knows too, right? It's all this information, these tidbits, I think they call it, like that you can get from just a
yeah,
quick conversation with somebody or getting connected with somebody. So I agree with you. Like that's the best kind of tip you can give somebody.
yeah.
But I also agree with the fact that it's like here's my point of view of that. I'm not sure if you have more to say, Brandon, but
I mean, like, we could probably talk about it. For everybody's got their own experience, and that's nice to hear, because everybody's got this unique way of coming to this, you know, industry, right? Like, uh, I'm good. I could share more, but I mean, really, for like 9 o'clock, 2 hour special. Let's keep going. I gotta get to the
Hey,
gym today too.
mine went for
Yeah.
3.5 hours,
Yeah.
apparently.
Hey, I was like, I am so into this. Like, this is
Oh,
good.
sorry.
now it's on YouTube
No,
for
it was
everybody
Keep
to
getting
bad.
hear.
invited to. Yeah. Well, because
Yeah.
people ask questions and I
Apologize.
bailed off questions. But I I agree with you though about learning and keeping doors open. So I had a
Yeah.
student once tell me, she's like, I don't need my BCIN. Don't you worry. For
Yeah.
the record, she's now a building inspector in Belleville, and I get to laugh every time I see her name come across my email because I'm like, ha ha, you had to go and get it. But I think to your point though, there are a lot of jobs that don't require BCIN.
Yeah.
So I taught architecture for Loyalist College. I was a kitchen designer for Home Depot. And I have friends that are kitchen designers for boutiques that are architectural technicians and technologists or civil engineering techs that do really, really, really well in the boutique kitchen industry because they're very personable and they sell really well. And their design skills still come into play and it works really well for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are realtors that do really well with it because they can envision a project and say, hey, you could do this with this house, right?
Yep.
Um, their real estate photography, if like you need to play around. I've
Mhm.
always worked
Yeah.
multiple jobs or owned multiple companies, and it works for me and it works for my brain.
Yeah.
But I don't tend to say no to opportunities. So with the when Bill 124 came into effect and we had to do BCIN all of a sudden because I was working for a large home builder in the area at the time, I had one of the building inspectors approach me. He's like, Lisa, I think you should go do this. So here's the course information. And I didn't realize it. He was getting me into the second pilot program for general legal. So I went and I did it. And that's where we did it in the hotel room. And that opportunity opened the doors. So I had my BCIN and the company I was working for didn't have any hiccups because I had my general legal and I had my house all done, ready to go for when the like when everything took effect and you had to be licensed by. Whereas some of the companies had an issue with it. He was the same inspector that came to me and he's like, so we're running a plumbing all buildings course. You should come and get it. So I did, and plumbing all buildings, because you plumbing all buildings, plumbing house, and I had my general legal and I had my house. The city of Kingston's rule is if you want to work as a building inspector, you have to have a minimum of 3 qualifications plus your general legal. So that got me in the door for being a building inspector, to the point where they were actually calling me at work and offering me a job. So, like, not saying no to opportunities of courses is what's really going to help you figure out where you want to be, if that makes any sense. Like, it's like I've been fortunate on one hand, but other things too. Like, I don't know, like, you have to be open. Not everybody sees the opportunity and goes, hey, okay, let's do this, right? And goes for it.
No, and I agree. It was like both of you in that terms. Like okay, back to like Brandon's example there, working with like whatever you need to do to kind of like get that experience, right? I was just like lucky enough to get a job right after like Sheridan College, but what I would have done is like work in the construction field to understand how things are being built and kind of bring that along to the architectural field. Like I would think it's a little bit easier. Like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's easier to go into like, the construction field being like a framer or whatever you need to be versus working in an architectural office. You know, it's a lot less competitive, I would say. I might be wrong, but I would think you get to construction crew a lot easier, learn how to do the framing, the drywall, whatever that you need to do, and then apply for a job in the architectural field, explaining to them, hey, listen, I've been on site, I know how this works, type of thing, and bring that experience to that office space where you have a bunch of like CAD nerds like just doing the CAD stuff in a way. That would be my approach if I had to go back over again. And that would be my advice to the go-to people who are trying to get a job in that. Try to get experience outside the architectural field to bring to the architectural field type of industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Which works now for everybody. 25 years ago, being female, I was not accepted on building sites, right? As it was, I had a hard enough time going out as a designer and not everybody being okay with me being there. The world has definitely changed for the better on that end, but you know, that is something that the opportunity is not always an option to do that. There are still cases where I walk into a building and they're like, women on site. And it's like, okay, like, honey, I swear like a trucker. Like, I don't care what the hell you say.
Jesus.
Like, it's just like, oh, come on here. Like, if you don't think I've heard it before, but it is, the industry has changed. So I was at Sheridan 25 years ago. We had a class of about 200. There were 5 of us that were female.
Oh, okay. That's a lot less than I thought there was, but yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, I could agree. I had there was only a handful in my graduating class, and fortunately, I can remember one specifically, just straight out of the gates, worked for Ellis Dawn. I was like, yes, like, yeah,
it has gotten way better,
right?
But,
like,
I mean, like, this isn't really what we were here for, but the industry has changed. I will say from teaching, I quit teaching 4 years ago, and it was about 50-50 in the class, which was amazing to see.
That's
because
cool.
and even there was females in the construction, renovation, and the civil engineering as well, which is great to see. And it's a lot more accepted. I will say there are still like old school guys that are like, you have no place on this construction site, blah 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 blah, and you're like, you know, that's your opinion. Thanks. I don't know what to tell you.
The quick way to get canceled.
Well, now, but when I was the building inspector, it was like, well, that's great, but I'm still your building inspector, so too bad. So
make it worse for them. Give them a list of complaints.
One of 2 ways.
It's like, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm here, so suck her up, Buttercup. Because you're stuck with me. But it is definitely a different industry than it was 25 years ago.
No, 100%. And even like everything has changed since that back then. Like even work ethics from some people, right? It's, you know, I don't know about you guys and your employees, but you know, it's tough to find good help. But you're trying to find the right group of people in your company to kind of match your energy and match how serious you are about your job in a way, right? Are they willing to learn? Are they willing to look into the building code? Are they willing to advance their experience, or is it just a job for them? That seems to be like the popular kind of topic I've been talking with other design firms in their thing. Could they have maybe one design manager and the rest of them are just workers? So I think it's fair everyone just to gain that knowledge at the same time, right? So everyone has a say in it in a way, right?
I think everybody like you need to gain some sort of experience, whether it's customer service even. I saw a lot of students that were coming straight from high school. They were 17. We used to have to be 18 before we could go. Like that year can be a big difference. I'm finding in the maturity. And I've also found like a lot of parents were like, oh, you only have 1 year that you can work, so you don't have to work. Um, and so I hate to tell you this, but most of those kids were the ones that did not show up for school. So you just wasted all of that money on them going that they never actually went. And that was a pet peeve of mine. Like, show up.
No, 100%.
Do the work at least. Like, I know sometimes, like, I did have a student that had some medical problems and he couldn't always be in class because he had to be on dialysis and his dialysis was scheduled for certain times and it was very important. Well, he needs to be alive. So, okay. But he was very upfront about it at the beginning of the school year and we worked around it. It's okay. Like, but those that just don't show up because they can't be bothered, it's like those are the ones you don't want to hire. And that was where teaching was really beneficial, is because I hired some of my old students because I knew who they were.
No, 100%. That's the way to go about that, right? You need to find people with right work ethics. And even at that point, there's another strategy. Like if you do get that job while you're working your 9 to 5 job, just work on your BCIN or work on other qualifications in the meantime, right? You don't have to stay at that job forever. It's more of like it's to keep you stable, financially stable, until you can get your rest of your stuff, right? But I think we've gone a little bit way over our 1 hour, but hopefully this has been great information for everybody involved. I'm not sure. What do you guys think about it?
Oh,
Yeah.
this was a
It's been a
great
good chat.
turnout, great engagement, good conversation. I enjoyed it. I feel like I'm getting more and more comfortable with, engaging in these situations that gonna have to step it up next year,
No, 100%. We're definitely going to bring you guys back for our own one-on-one, and I really do hope the community obviously appreciates your time there, and of course, hopefully even ask more questions, because I think that's what we're lacking here. I can talk to you guys all night long, but if the community doesn't ask questions, how do we know how to help them? That's one thing, right? That's the whole reason why we have these
Yeah.
these meetings too, because we don't have to share, but we're happy to share type of our experience, right? And even from learning from each other too. I'm very grateful to understand and learn from you three and your situations and your specific projects, right? Maybe we'll go project by project and understand how Brandon designs a custom home, how Lisa does her second unit apartment buildings, or right. Again, we can all share and learn from each other. That's the whole purpose of it. But
yeah.
any
It's basically like a lot of sketches and
Yeah.
just a lot of random papers everywhere.
listen, buddy. Listen, I want to buy you an iPad and ship it your way. That's what I'm going to do. Oh my gosh.
An iPad. Okay, there is something about a pencil in hand that just a metal eye stylus is never gonna replace.
Doesn't do it.
And
It doesn't.
However,
it just
I do want to hear about the all building scanning. Like I'm like,
This is the iPad.
yes.
yes.
Yeah, the photogrammatic, like that's some really cool stuff. I mean, yeah, it's a cool piece of tech, but I mean, like,
You mean
what
this
a
thing?
service to be able to provide.
This
Yeah,
listen. If you want to give up your
it's
soul,
like something out of this world.
if you want to give up your soul and food for a year, yeah, go ahead, go buy one. But that thing is that's like sending your kid to university. That's not cheap, that's for sure. But
I could not imagine. Oh my
But all I want to
gosh.
know is like in hoarding situations, because I've been through a couple of those ones. How does it still scan the house?
yeah, so I actually went to measure a house today. It had almost a similar situation.
Isn't that
So
some crazy sometimes.
it captures
Jeez,
everything.
the amount of stuff.
Yeah, no, it
My-
captures it.
my business partner bought a house and it was a hoarding situation. And I was like, I am notorious. I shouldn't admit this. I show up in my safety sandals on job sites all the time. I'm like, forget it. I've been doing this too long at this point. And I was like, I had to go and buy new boots because I took a look at the pictures when he bought it. And I was like, damn, I can't wear safety sandals on that. So I went and bought new work boots because I had to step up 3 feet into the crack in order to measure the room. I'm like, man. So I was like, I see your scanner and I'm like, how does it measure around the piles of junk?
So I would still have
All
to
I
walk
could
around
think.
that. So it's like, and I've been in your situation, Lisa. Like I
Yeah.
hate doing those kind of measurements. Like imagine just a tape and a laser just all over that stuff. So the way it works is just literally just scans everything in front of you. So I still need to be able to walk around the pile because imagine the laser is like your eyes. Whatever it measures whatever you see. So if the pile is against a corner, it won't be able to scan the corner. So you either move the pile, or you just hope to God that the walls are pretty much aligned and there's no little bump out there, right? Which again, I just went through a building today and I had to kind of kick around a few things every now and then just to get the scan proper, right? But the lucky part is this thing is handheld. You don't have to set it up. So I'm literally walking around like this,
Nice.
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty cool.
But
I was lucky. Like it's my business partner, so I was like, worst case, I missed something. You're gonna like I have a lockbox code because I go through and do videos of the houses all the time. So I'm like, worst case, we'll catch it later. But it was so full of junk that we found a bathroom.
you found a bathroom?
Like we didn't.
Oh,
We
a
found
whole
a bathroom.
room.
Oh my
A
God.
whole room.
Oh my.
So between when I went there the first time and went just to do a quick walkthrough to make sure that it was going to work, and then when I went back the second time to measure, they had emptied out an entire room, and there was a whole 2-piece bathroom that we didn't know about. So,
Man.
when I say hoarding, like he was like,
Hoarding.
"What do you mean that's a fire order on the door?" I'm like, "No, like." He's like, "That's not a fire order." I'm like, "Yes, it is." There's a
Maybe
fire
not to
order
him,
on
it
that
isn't.
door.
Yeah, that's next
Well,
level.
he actually,
Fire-
it was so faded, he didn't believe that it was truly a
Jeez.
fire order.
Wow.
So yeah, it was lovely. It's a fantastic house. If it had not been full of hoarding stuff and it had been fixed up, it's worth about $1 million. Because it wasn't fixed
Oh.
up, I think he paid $350 for it.
Okay, you know what?
So
You want to send me his number? You know, you want to share a little bit? I'd be curious to see where he's buying these buildings. Oh my God, or these houses in that case.
Yeah.
But wow,
this
He's
one
buying
was
a
an
house for
off.
350,000. Like it must have been just a wreck. Like
Oh,
you
like
could
the
jump
ceiling
through the
caved
floor.
in and like
Yeah.
he's a
Oh, okay.
contractor,
Yeah.
so it's not a big
Yeah.
deal. The
Yeah.
house
Well,
is structurally sound. It's just been abandoned,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
yeah,
Man, because that is
somebody
hard.
came
That
in
is
and
a hard
trashed it.
find right now. A
I
house,
know.
just
So
it's
his realtor works with my realtor
crazy.
now, so she saw the house, knew I wasn't able to buy right now, so she called her one of her guys, and it was his, and
Yeah.
he walked him through, and he bought it. So yeah, it's a nice purchase. We were turning it into a triplex.
oh okay.
It's a solid flip.
We're converting the garage to a 1-bedroom unit. There's a 3-bedroom unit in the main part of the house, and then there's a 2-bedroom unit. So ching.
Oh,
It was originally going to be a flip. It's no longer a flip. So it's just another one for his portfolio.
that's good. But if you guys are looking for cheap land, I know a little town called Fort Erie that has it for like $250. You know, $250. That's it. But it's
Yeah.
Fort Erie. You know, you guys know it's not very attractive in a
That's
way.
not cheap enough.
But
Man,
like, you know,
you gotta-
it's land. It's like, you know, think about the future. Think about your kids. They'll have a piece of solid land near Niagara Falls. You know, that's what I'm thinking. But
There's nothing in Fort Erie. There's never been anything in
Yeah.
Fort Erie at all.
you're right. You're right. That's
Ever.
why the land is so cheap. That's why it is. But you want it cheap. That's why I offer it. But I think
Like you gotta go to like
no, it's like
Crystal Beach is like, I mean, but that's not even like you gotta keep going. Like You know, you're right, Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
No.
Chippewa, but like really, I mean, basically Niagara Falls. I used to live down in that area.
Perfect.
Great place.
All right, guys. So we'll start. We'll stop there because I feel like we'll continue for another hour at that point. But for sure, let's finish off. Any last feedback? Anything else you guys want to bring to the table before the New Year's? And again, just to let everyone else know, this is our last one for 2023, and then we're coming back middle of January. So I gotta talk with you three about like new schedules for like when I can bring you guys back on in the new year. But yeah, no, definitely. Any last minute words, encouragements? Anything?
I'd say just get involved. Get
Yeah.
involved, whether it's with ATO or whether it's with your investor networks locally or your home builders association. Just get involved. There's people that have been in this industry for a very long time that are set to retire, and they have a lot to teach. So learn.
Perfect. Great answer. Amazing. That's definitely the way we want to kind of push this thing towards, right? You have to, if you want to learn, you gotta ask questions. You gotta be involved in. That's the biggest part of it. Joseph, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think the big thing that's for me is just always been just figure out where you want to be and what you want to do, and just kind of head towards that. At the end of the day, as long as you're happy with what you're doing and what you're doing wakes you up in the morning, then that's more important than anything. Whatever side of the industry that it's on.
Perfect. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Brandon, you want to finish us off? What's your
Mhm.
last feedback here? You know, not too much pressure, but
Man.
you're the last one to speak there.
If anybody wants to put a 1,500 square foot addition onto a gym, come talk to me. I can't do it. I
Any-
really wish I could. But
Anybody got their large
You gotta
building?
just rate that exam. Yes.
Yeah,
what's
no.
What's that, buddy? What's that, Henry?
Yeah, no, like wanted large building designer. That's what you need. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure that's what you need.
right.
But perfect. All right,
Yeah,
guys.
we
It
can
would
talk.
solve a lot of problems. But yeah, advice, inspirations. I just, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays if I don't talk to any of you guys, right? And yeah, just all the best with everybody. This place isn't going anywhere. This is a cool networking place, even when we're not online. So throughout the day, like I'm on, I check it every now and then, and sometimes I'll accidentally go into a live session just to, see what's going on and get out there and be like, what am I doing here? But no, yeah, it's really cool. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on, and it's yeah,
Thank you.
it's good.
Perfect.
It's all good stuff.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. All right, I won't take up too much of your time. That's pretty much it. And then everything will go on YouTube in the next few days. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
That's good.
All right, take care, guys.
That's good. Take care,
Bye.
guys. Bye.